My name is Miura. I'm from Japan, and I'm from class 10. I grew up in a small town in northern Japan. When I was 18, I went to Tokyo for the first time in my life to study at the university. Surrounded by smart and rich classmates, I had no idea how to get along with those guys. I got lost. I got lost in school and in my life. At that time, I was like a mountain bear, coming from mountain to a big city. I got lost. After 2 years apathy and struggle, I finally decided to go to a school psychotherapist. And in the counseling, I talked to a gentle, quiet old man about why I was facing the difficulty. He listened all the time. He didn't give me even a single piece of advice. He listened all the time. But at the end, he said, "I think you are okay." That's it. But a small flower of hope bloomed in my heart. Suddenly, I started to think, yes, I'm okay. My basis worries dissolved. I don't know why, but dissolved. What he did was to listen, empathize, and accept. Later in my life, I got to know that what he did was the basic of psychotherapy. Carl Rogers is one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century. He proposed the concept of self-actualization. Most of the psychological problems are caused by the discrepancy between ideal self and actual behavior. To realize the self-actualization, that these two things have to be congruent. To make this happen, you have to reflect upon yourself, not by letting someone else point out. That's why he proposed the importance of listening. And that's what exactly my psychotherapist did for me. What about creative people? What about you and what about me? Do we listen? Do we empathize? Do we accept? I would say we talk, we assert, and we decline. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because these characters have been fostered for many years to make our ideas survive against conflicts and arguments. But aren't they barriers to become creative CEO? Takashi Saito, the professor of social communication in Japan, said that there are two dans for CEO's job. What's dan? He said, that's Japanese. Zatsudan and ketsudan, two dans. In English, it means chat and decision. Here, the chat is physical, interpersonal chat, not a digital online chat. I just want to clarify it. By having an effective chat, leaders can, for instance, implement the top-level sales or search for consumers' demand. and generate idea. And he or she can communicate with corporate staff. Chat is so important for the leader. So, objective of my thesis is to find the keys to have an effective interpersonal chat in everyday life. This is my the thesis structure. I conducted 2 sets of research. First is survey, and second, experiment. And then I'll conclude. First, let me start with survey. Survey was collected from 94 colleagues, Japanese, working at the same company as me. Coincidentally, 47 females and 47 males, and average age of respondents was 36, ranging from 20s to 50s. The focus of the survey was these 4 things: chance, topic, people, and expectation. I had 3 assumptions for the survey. First, less talk. What does it mean? They may have less talk than 5 years ago, mainly because of prevailing digital communication devices. Second, they talk more about good things than bad things. Why? In the counseling, they are only talking about worries and troubles. But in everyday conversation, the good topics, such as non-work related trivial topics, may work as the lubricant of communication. Listen is more important than advice. That's my third assumption. After all, I think listening is important. Even if somebody is seeking advice, maybe you have to first listen. So, let's examine whether my assumptions were correct or not. First, the question was, compared to 5 years ago, the chances of talking with others have increased or decreased? What do you think? Decreased, yeah, as I assume. But look at this. Most people said, oh, it didn't change. But more people responded, it has increased. And let's take a look at the reason for decrease first. The reasons of the decrease, first, the changes in environment. And second, the conversation was replaced by digital communication, as I assumed. But there are some, but it's not a big number. One respondent said, in my everyday job, most of what I had talked over phone had been replaced by emails. In the past, I was talking incessantly. Now I'm not. The office floor became very quiet. That was my assumption. But it was not so many. So then, what about the reasons of increase? Changes in environment, both in workplace and private, is the biggest reason of the increase of the conversation. Changes in workplace environment include such as job change or transference to another division, or finding new employment for younger employee, and so on. I think it's because the average age of respondents are 36. They are in the life stage of expanding network. If the average age was older, then we might have had a different result. And I got some interesting comments in changes in myself. One said, recently I recognized how beneficial it is to meet and talk with others. And another said, since the March 11 earthquake, I have intentionally increased the chances to meet with others. As I noticed, human bond is very important, very meaningful. But this answer may give answer to my assumption, why my assumption was not correct. One said, now we communicate more by emails. However, in work, we talk over phone after reading an email. In private, we communicate by email and then meet and talk. We need to talk anyway. So it means interpersonal communication was enhanced by digital communication. So my first assumption, less talk, was wrong. Rather, they have more talk. Then, let me go on to the second point. Good topic or bad topic? Which they talk more? For the question, which thing, good or bad, do you want to talk about? I've got very interesting result. The total number is about the same between good and bad. But more men talk about good things, and more women talk about bad things. I'm not saying women are kind of negative. I'm not saying women have more worries and troubles. I think that women are more open to talk about their worries, and men are more, let's say, independent and less open. That's my interpretation. Example of the topics of good things are trivialities, sport, hobby, family, human relation, blah, blah, blah. Anything can be a topic, such as news, restaurant, weather, fashion. And look at these two comments. It shows that the men want to avoid negativity, negative topic. So what about the bad things? Future, human relation, family, health, and work. And interestingly, in all kinds of topics, more women give the answer, give negative answer than men. So these are the example of the answer. Anxiety about the future. Yes, I have anxiety too. And this is interesting. Things I don't want to answer in this questionnaire. Very interesting. To sum it up, for the second assumption, women are likely to talk about negative topics, and men vice versa. And non-work related happy small topics can function as the lubricant of human relation. So in that sense, my assumption was partly correct and partly incorrect, depending on gender. Number 3, what about listening and advice? For the question, what is the ideal characteristics of a chat partner? As I assumed, most people answered listening, followed by advice. But looking at this, it seems that more women seek advice than men. that exactly related to the previous topic, good thing and bad thing. So, anyway, we like to be listened. And more women seek advice than men. So in that sense, my final assumption was correct. So that was the result. And to summarize, first, chances of conversation are increasing. And second, non-work related positive topics are important. It's not like counseling. Listen, empathize, and give advice. And there are gender differences. Now, I wanted to more closely look into the behavior of conversation. So, I conducted experiment for the second research. What I did was just simple. I just make two persons chat each other for 8 minutes. And I videotaped, and I left the room, and after the chat, they answered to the questionnaire, and I analyzed. First, I thought it is very simple and easy, but it turned out to be wrong. Why? Oh, no, before that, let me talk about the samples. The 48 Japanese colleagues working at Dentsu Tokyo were cooperative. I split them into 3 groups. Group A, women, women. Group B, men and men. And C, men and women. And I have prepared general topic like sport and hobby, unforgettable travel, about me, and challenging job. And these cards were put in an envelope. And the person drew one card, and if both of them agreed with the theme, then they start a chat. The questionnaire was about, first, the estimation of talk time. So I'll talk about it later. And second, evaluation of conversation and the reason. Number 3, evaluation of a partner and its reason. Number 4, a free description about the good and bad points of a partner. So that's what I wanted to show you guys. So after the conversation, I made this sheet of record for every 24 sets of conversation. It took enormous amount of time. And it almost killed me. I set rules for analysis. So the talk time was recorded in 5 seconds increment for realistic reason. Because I used a low tech, so I can't, the split into 1 second, by 1 second. And I set the rule of topic possession. What does it mean? So if a person A talks about his topic, and then frequently a person B chimes in or asks question and make response. But if those responses were less than 5 seconds, that was included in A's talk time. So that was a rule. And the duration of talk was converted to the percentage because the actual talk time was not exactly 8 minutes, even if I instructed them to talk for 8 minutes. So I converted it to the percentage. Now, let me jump in the findings. Which talks longer, men and women? What do you think, Michael? Easy?
I think men.
Oh, you think men?
Yeah.
Okay. You are correct. So, this is the result. Group A, Group B does not matter. The Group C has men and women. The men talked for 56% of time and women 44%.
The question is what kind of substance?
Topic was random, anyways. Men talks longer than women. I think it's, for instance, I thought that it is related in a sense to a Japanese culture. That traditionally we have a tradition of men's leadership. So women tends to be more reserved. So I think that may affect the result. So that, the cross-cultural experiment would be interesting to explore, but I didn't. Second question. Which talks longer, the older and the younger? Older. Seamus, what do you think? Yeah. That's true. Okay. Interestingly, in every group, the older talk longer than the younger, at the ratio of 56% and 44%. For instance, in Japan, we have to use respect language, different language, when the younger talks to the older. So, by using that language, the younger automatically get in the respect mode. And maybe they become reserved. Number 3, do they talk longer than they think? This is what I wanted to know. So what I mean is, do they overestimate their talk time or they underestimate their talk time? Or in other words, they like to talk or they like to listen. What do you think? Alemao. Overestimate talk time. Okay, so they think they talked longer than the actual time. Bingo. Interestingly as well, in every group, they thought that they talked longer than the actual talk time. But it is totally different from my assumption. I assumed that they like to talk, so they might underestimate the talk time. For instance, let's say if they talk for 5 minutes, but they might think, they just talked only for 4 minutes or something. But it was not true. I think there are 2 reasons. One is measurement error. Because as I said, short, quick response questions were included in the other's talk time, as long as the other is talking about his or her topic. So they might unconsciously include those short responses and questions in their talk time. So that's one reason. And second reason is that talking takes more energy because you have to use vocal cord and you have to use body language. So that may impress you more. So I think that would be the reason. But I didn't give up with my assumption. I tried to more. And you know what? I like accounting, so I like mathematics. So this is a comparison between the difference between the estimate and the actual talk time and the percentage of actual talk time. What it means is that, for instance, look at this guy, these guys. These guys talked for about 80% of time. They talked for a long time. And they are likely to underestimate their talk time. They don't think they talked that long. Oh, I just talked for 4 minutes, but actually they talked 6 or 7 minutes. And the other way around happened for the person who talked for shorter time. And the correlation coefficient is 0.52 2, which means there is a significant correlation. Question number 4, what about the relation between talk time and satisfaction? What I mean is, if you talk for a long time, you are satisfied. The result is there is no correlation. My experiment failed. I think there is a reason, because evaluation about satisfaction is totally subjective things. So it depends on each person. But look at these 2 blank spots. What does it mean? A person who talked for long time and for short time were not satisfied with the conversation. It's interesting. And also, look at this. This is another analysis between the talk time and the evaluation by the partner. And look at the blank spot. A person who talked like for 80% of time never received highest evaluation from the partner. Finally, what kind of comments did they receive? The most people answered listening attitude was a good point of a partner. For instance, the listening attitude and reactions and frequent questions. Those they pointed out, those are the good points of a partner. So findings of this experiment is men talks longer than women. The older talks longer than the younger. Unbalanced chat may lead to lower satisfaction. And those who talk for a long time may underestimate talk duration. And again, I found that listening matters. I'm sure that you are tired of looking at diagram after diagram. So now it's time to do some touchy-feely thing. I analyzed case by case. From the viewpoint of talk time, the most typical case is half and half. A person A talks for the first half, and the person B talks for the last half. Because they met for the first time each other, it's a little bit awkward, but it's very democratic. It's balanced. It's good. And the variation of half and half is that a person A talks, and then B, and then comes back to A. But in total, the talk time is about the same. It's good. And if the talk gets more and more lively, so I would say it's a kind of interweave chat, like catch. But so in this type of chat, it's hard to tell who talks about whose topic. By exchanging a lot of questions and responses and talks, so it was so hard to record this type of chat. But they are very satisfied with the conversation. The person A and the person B made the same comment about frequent questions and appreciate to making comfortable atmosphere. On the other hand, 9 out of 24 cases, which is 37%, was one-sided chat. This is the extreme of one-sided. How many minutes this guy talked? Like 7 minutes. Look at this.
海外系の仕事を5年6年でちょっと思い巡らせて
Oh, looking back, I worked as a client service for 10 years. I'm translating. My first business travel was to Shanghai. That was really interesting.
今東京電通やりきないと
Now Tokyo Dentsu is less motivated, but now we need to more energy, things like that,
出会いと新しい人とまた何か
and forever. That's what happened. It's interesting. In the comment, he made very selfish comment. I felt comfortable in talking. Her gentle smile made me feel good. And it was a big pity that she couldn't follow my story. Who he is? Is he a CEO or something? And the woman seems to enjoy listening, but in the questionnaire, it was not. She said that he needs to think about time distribution. All right. The second viewpoint was pace of talk. Same pace is good. Look at these guys.
始まった仕事をバイクになられそうですね。いや、やりがいのあった仕事を。
What was my challenging job?
やりがいっていう。
The definition of challenging is difficult.
どういう役割の時に。
It depends on what kind of role and what kind of position. And then he talks. When my work pleases somebody, I think it's good. Like my boss, like my clients. Creative is challenging, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. All right. So, is this good or bad? Look at these two blank sections. As you notice, there are some silent moments, but they were really satisfied with the talk because both of them talk in slow pace and they could think about what to say. So they made a very interesting comment. A said he had a good pace, and B said also about the same thing. Number 3, honesty and empathy. Honest talk is always appreciated. For instance, in this case, this woman talked about the last trip with her deceased father to the person she met for the first time. And she was very moved, and then she talked about the story of failure when she was traveling in China. That happens many times. And they really appreciated each other. But on the other hand, superficial talk. This guy was trying to be honest and frank as possible. But this guy was trying to stay in his comfort zone by talking about rumors of a company. And the superficial guy said, oh, the conversation was very enjoyable and we could play catching conversation. But honest guy said, oh, it was partly enjoyable. And he criticized. He lacks in real opinion. Finally, body language. Rather than explaining, just look at this video.
そうそう、俺のが立山行ってる時、ラジオで聞いてたら。
Oh, when I went to that mountain, listening to that radio, or somebody was involved in avalanche. My unforgettable travel is like, what was that? Not people, but nature, or something like this. So this guy didn't look him in the eyes. Okay. Finally, the conclusion. Let's make my conclusion for a short time. If you cover all the points I mentioned in this presentation, your chat can become power chat. Power chat can acquire trust and can build long-term relation by talking about personal topic with heart-to-heart attitude for longer time. And you should build up, expand the talk, and you should go deep. There are 3 keys for power chat. First, you have to listen. Again, research proved you have to listen, listen, and listen. And this listening is an active behavior, not passive behavior. And if you are a man, older, or you are in higher position, you have to be careful. You might talk longer. Second, adjust. You have to adjust pace, depth, and the body language. And finally, you have to be open. Telling a personal story is very powerful. And you could show example, and you can be very specific about the topic. And again, be careful if you are men. Men are likely to be very superficial. So that's the summary. It's easy. Keys of effective chat are very simple, but it takes time to change your behavior. Thank you. That's it.